in the end, I hadn't paid the bill, so they had to like chase me down the road, and I think I can't go back. So I don't know what I'm going to do.
Oh, your wife's going to be happy.
Oh, well, yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Anyway, what are we doing today? What are we talking about? I haven't looked at the script yet.
So about that. So we're on the road to 9.
Yeah, is it going to be done soon? I'm so tired. I just want it to be over.
Nearly, but recently I said that I was done talking about The Last Jedi.
Yes.
Well,
no,
I lied.
Oh. No.
We're doing The Last Jedi, baby! Woo!
Oh, fucking bullshit. Can we just stop?
Matt?
Alright, so if you insist on doing this, how the hell are we going to do it? Like, how do we approach it?
So, I think with this, you got to give it a fair and balanced review. All sides. Get kind of centrist and Fox News, fair and balanced.
Okay, so should we like look and see what all of the people's like major gripes and stuff have been, and like make sure that, you know, we address them all point by point?
Nah.
What?
That's a terrible idea.
What?
There are so many terrible takes on YouTube. I know you guys love the film.
Who's that?
So today, we're going to focus on our reactions of The Last Jedi, the bits we love, and what we hope it means for the Rise of Skywalker.
Is this what religion is like?
It sounds like Marie Claire from What the Force.
Yeah, it's me.
Is it God?
No,
Maybe it's Zuul?
that's the wrong franchise. It's definitely me.
Yeah, definitely Zuul.
I knew it.
No, Marie Claire from What the Force podcast.
That's what Zuul would say to lure us into a false sense of security.
Yeah, definitely. That's a typical Zuul thing to say.
Anyways, while these two idiots figure out if I'm a Ghostbusters villain or me, I want to talk about...
The first time I saw The Last Jedi, there was a point while I was watching it, and I can't quite remember exactly the point, where I sort of knew I was watching something good, like more than good. Like, it doesn't happen that often, like, that I have that reaction during a movie when I realize I'm in the middle of something that could be a masterpiece. But Last Jedi, I had that. I was sort of watching it and thought to myself, I'm watching the best Star Wars film. It's happening now in real time in front of me. And I had the advantage of, I got to see it at a press screening in Australia, which meant that I saw it somewhere in the region of about 36 hours before the first people saw it in Australia. So I was one of the first 100 or 150 people in the world to see it. So I got to just sit with this wonderful feeling of this incredible movie before all that other crap happened. So for me, watching The Last Jedi was such a pure bubble moment of just like, this is a masterpiece, and everyone else is going to agree that this is a masterpiece.
My initial reactions to The Last Jedi were pretty complicated. I was sort of in a comatose state after the movie. I'd gone with a friend who, when I wasn't talking directly after a new Star Wars movie, was a little confused and concerned and asked me, you know, if I was okay. And I said, yeah, better than okay. And then she followed up and said, well, did you like it? And I said, yeah, I loved it. I'm just trying to figure out why. It was so impactful as far as the visuals, the emotions the characters went through, especially Rey's journey. Although feeling quieter on surface spoke to me personally as a woman. There was so much to unpack. It literally took me weeks to like think about it. I resaw it a couple of times. I was still processing it ongoing and basically trying to talk to everyone who would listen to it until one day my husband was like, hey, maybe you should talk to people out there instead of here. Mainly because I was super frustrated with a lot of the, I don't know, how people were talking about it in podcasts and YouTube channels. So I decided to start What the Force and talk about Star Wars the way I wanted to hear about it. And, but I guess that's kind of what art does. Really good art sparks conversation and really allows us to have very important conversations. And so The Last Jedi might be divisive. The Last Jedi might be divisive, but it's definitely art.
All right, so I have this real distinct memory of watching The Last Jedi for the first time with a bunch of friends. We'd all seen The Force Awakens together as well, and we came out of that and we were like, fist bump to the sky kind of thing. And then we came out of, 2 years later, we came out of The Last Jedi, and there weren't as many sort of fist bump moments in the sense of, like, there was lightning in the bottle with The Force Awakens, but with The Last Jedi, like, that had gone. We were in Star Wars now, like, fandom had been kicked off again, and instead there were a bunch of, like, gobsmacked kind of expressions in the group. We were, like, recounting things that we were like, oh my god, that was cool. Like, there were so many moments that were just like, whoa. And I think what led to that was, it was probably the first time where I'd sat in a cinema seat and had no clue of what was going to happen. Like, I'd partaken in all the theorizing beforehand. I'd, read and watched all the different theories on who Rey was and all this stuff. And when that reveal dropped, I remembered thinking, none of that stuff mattered. None of it made a difference. It meant shit. It meant nothing. And I remember feeling a sense of relief as well, because, like, up into the last week, I remember people were, like, really, like, getting quite aggressive with their theorizing and like, sort of saying what it was going to be and all that sort of stuff. And when so much of that stuff was thrown out the window, or not even thrown out the window because it was never in the house in the first place, I remember feeling just relief. But then I got home and I couldn't sleep. So I laid in bed that night staring at a dark ceiling, and I did not sleep a bit. Not, like when people say, oh, I didn't sleep, but really they slept like 2 hours, 3 hours. No, I didn't sleep. I just laid there all night thinking about it and running it through my head. And my first instinct when I got out of bed in the morning, dog tired, was, I need to see this again immediately. Because if I'm feeling this way, I'm sure other people were feeling this way. And I didn't know how I actually felt about the film, but I did think, this is going to cause a stir.
So we're saying it was a divisive film?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love The Last Jedi, but I watched a lot of videos on YouTube and a lot of people disagree. I think, according to YouTube, everyone disagrees. It's a terrible film and it was extremely divisive.
How many videos do you watch?
3. And there was about a runtime of 76.5 hours.
I think I watched a few of those, and they said that Star Wars had never been divisive before in its entire history.
Yeah, never. And it's that kind of divisiveness that needs to be corrected for the real fans.
So what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is we need to remake the whole film.
Yes, for the real fans.
That's the worst idea I've ever heard.
Yeah, we should remake the whole movie, and we should make sure that Han never dies in The Force Awakens, or he comes back in some way. And then every time there's a scene with Admiral Holdo or Rose, it's Leia. And then we find out that Leia has been cloned a number of times, and basically the Resistance is made up of all these Force-sensitive layers. And then at the end of the movie, Luke appears just like he did in the original, but He's not force projecting. He actually got on an X-Wing because he had a second X-Wing and it was like there, it was ready to roll. And at the end, he looks at the camera and he says, Matt, I want to be your best friend.
Okay, I was wrong.
Really?
Yeah, that's the greatest idea I've ever heard.
Really?
Yeah, these YouTubers are very upset and they need to be protected.
Well, nobody think of the YouTubers!
Yes, we must protect them, the little babies. Ooh, ooh.
Protect them.
Good, so what are our favorite bits that don't need to be remade? You know, budgets are tight.
My favorite scene in The Last Jedi, and this is like trying to choose the best course in the greatest, 12-course meal of your life. But it's the crate assault or the crate battle. I'm a big softie for those kinds of scenes where like a small force has to hold off a bigger force and buy time before they're rescued. So I'm a big fan of like Dog Soldiers and Zulu and all those siege movies, and one of my favorite elements of the Return of the Jedi, is Lando saying, Han will get that shield down, we've got to give him more time, and this sort of like sense of hopelessness. And I love that with the crate battle of all these things that have happened in the movie, and it's like, right, no, this is where we're gonna make our stand. And also it has one of my favorite scenes in any Star Wars where Rose has got the 3 TIE fighters behind her, everything seems lost, and then there's just that one perfect shot all the way through. And then you get the shadow of the Falcon, and then it cuts to Rey and the gun, and she's like, woo, I like this. And then Kylo's reaction to that and everything, every part of that just works. And it's also great character stuff. Rey could have just ran off to the other side of the galaxy, but she decides to come back and save everyone. And her first instinct is to lure the TIE fighters away to help the fighters rather than trying to do the big heroic thing and attack the big ships. And yeah, I love it. It's purely Star Wars. It's gorgeous. And yeah, it's just another incredible thing about an incredible movie.
I want to talk about how the throne room scene, pretty much from the lead up, from the exit of the elevator all the way through with Kylo Ren and Snoke and the Praetorian Guard, is just fabulous. It is such an important scene and sort of the pivot point of all of the emotions that had been going through for Kylo and Rey the entire time up to that point. They exit the elevator kind of after experiencing all of this sexual tension in the elevator where they were in each other's personal bubbles and trying to kind of convince each other to join their sides. It was like a little mini tug of war in the elevator. They exit and immediately Kylo is like, loyal servant to Snoke. The whole perception of the scene goes through this almost roller coaster from the exit to the elevator where, Snoke is leading this interrogation with Rey. She's experiencing, defending Ben Solo and, saying that she's, you're underestimating me and Ben Solo. And Snoke is feeling very, very overconfident in his abilities. We actually get a really nice play and foreshadowing of Palpatine potentially as we hear the Emperor's theme as Rey is being tortured, and we see the Imperial cog in the underlay floor underneath Snoke. Really cool moment there to potentially foreshadow what's going to happen in the Rise of Skywalker. And then we get the turn, almost with Snoke narrating his own demise and death, as he turns the lightsaber and kills his true enemy, and then the lightsaber ignites and it flies into Rey's hand. And every audience that I saw the movie with in the theater cheered at this moment. They were just so excited to see Rey and Kylo team up together. The fight itself was just so awesome and launched 1,000, recut videos with new music to that scene, including shut up and dance with me, and just pure joy on the internet as we got to see all of these different cuts of this scene over and over and over again. And they work really well together. She had used his lightsaber earlier on in that throne room scene, and he used the legacy lightsaber to kill the last enemy. And then we think, hey, maybe they'll be on the same page, but nope, our expectations are totally subverted. And not since old Grandpappy had a proposal to rule the galaxy gone so bad from a space Darcy. He botched that so bad, and it was kind of heartbreaking to see, oh, you're still making the same mistakes, Kylo. And Rey is just absolutely heartbroken, and Adam and Daisy just acted this scene out like crazy. It was amazing. And then, the lightsaber split, and everyone was like, what does that mean? And we're kind of left there with not knowing what it's going to be. And they cut away until it's all resolved. Kind of later on, we see, what's happened with Kylo, and, Rey escaped. And it's kind of so many interesting questions. But the scene overall was just this absolute roller coaster from start to end. And our characters really go through the ringer during that with emotional highs and lows, and we as the audience go along with them. And it was so subversive and so interesting, and just took everybody by surprise. Kill Snoke in the second movie. Wasn't he supposed to be the bad guy? So cool. Loved what they did. It is absolutely one of the best scenes in The Last Jedi.
So one of those really ultra cool moments that I mentioned earlier, that is a real standout for me, is when Yoda turns up, and I guess seeing the tip of his ear kind of just come into the foreground of the frame, out of focus. The second I saw it, there was no doubt. I was like, oh, it's Yoda. It's fucking Yoda. Oh my God. And I remember sitting there going, ah! Audibly. I went, ah! like that. And a couple people around did the same thing. It wasn't just weirdo me. But yeah, the lead up to that scene where him and Luke share, I thought was just so well executed. That arrival of Rey and Luke basically seeking to break her down and turn her away, and that reversing, Rey eventually wearing him down to the point where he decides finally that he's going to reconnect to the Force. And, that moment that you see where he goes and he meditates and he has the connection with Leia, I was like, beautiful callback. That was great. Even the sound design in that, the way Rian Johnson got them to do the Force sound, when things happen, it's that sort of sound. I can't do it, but that happens. I was like, and then he goes down because he wants to tell Rey that he's reconnected. He wants to share that experience with her, but she's sharing that other Force experience with Ben, and it all goes awry, obviously. And then when he goes and is ready to just tear it all down, and Yoda brings him back, that made me openly weep. And I think that as a series of shots and frames and all the beautiful things in that, it meant a lot. And Yoda's theme, I mean, God, come on. The second I hear it, it's just Yeah, I'm just going to come out and say it. Mm-hmm. The Last Jedi is the best Star Wars movie.
Well, I have a bit of a weird relationship with Empire and The Last Jedi, where it's The Godfather 1 and Godfather 2, where it's whichever one I've seen the most recently is the one I like the most. Same as like Alien and Aliens, Terminator and Terminator 2, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. My two children.
To me, The Last Jedi totally took me by surprise in the best ways. It was very much, a middle chapter of a trilogy. George Lucas himself had said, these are three-act plays, which came out in that, Celebration pre-tape, and I think we saw it on the behind-the-scenes reel that came out recently in the lead-up. This is part of the journey of our main characters, is that they have to go through almost trials. They have to go through a very difficult period of time for themselves, and for Rey specifically, it's an emotional trial. And anyone that has seen Empire Strikes Back or Attack of the Clones will know that this was going to be a very subversive film, just kind of following the second movie in a 3-movie trilogy. It's going to change how the characters feel about things. The Force Awakens for me was always just kind of this perfect little film. There's very few things that I questioned about it. It always felt right. There was some super interesting things that happened that kind of subverted what I was thinking were going to happen from a, hey, we're starting a new trilogy, but it still felt so Star Wars. The Last Jedi feels like Star Wars, but Star Wars taken to a new level. There was so much interesting sand added to the Star Wars sandbox, but yet also it was incredibly artistic, mythological, and also kept us on our toes. What more can you ask for?
And The Force Awakens is kind of like when you meet up with an old friend for lunch. Mm-hmm. And The Last Jedi is like you meet up with that same friend for lunch, but instead of going to lunch, you go skydiving. And then when you land, you're on a roller coaster. And then you go home at the end of the day and you're covered in sweat and you're a little bit pukey, but you're also kind of horny.
Perfect. Vivid. And a lot of unsettling images, but perfect.
Of course, it's hard to say The Last Jedi is the best Star Wars film because of one teensy tiny thing.
Yeah, it's not over yet. And if there is something that's going to influence the Rise of Skywalker out of everything that we've discussed in this series, it's The Last Jedi.
We should definitely talk about that.
There are two things I think I want to see carried over from The Last Jedi into The Rise of Skywalker. One is that sense of surprise and courage or bravery, I guess, or cockiness that Rian Johnson brought to The Last Jedi, of just like breaking rules and keeping you on your toes. I think that made the movie incredible, especially the first time I watched it, because obviously you just didn't know what was going to happen and who was going to die and all that, and I want that. I also want that the definitive answer that Rian Johnson gave for Rey's parentage. I want that to be the answer. I want that to carry across that sense of like, this character is not defined within this bigger story by the people she's related to. She's defined by her actions that she's done by herself and how she influences the bigger story. So yeah, I want that. I want cockiness, and I want Rey's arc to continue the way it's going without some weird left turn into, oh, actually you're a clone of someone or some bullshit.
I hope that, per JJ's interviews, that The Last Jedi really did teach him how to be brave, and that future storytellers and JJ really learn that it's okay to be artistic. It's okay to use tons of symbolism, amp it up. We want to see crazy, weird Force stuff in The Rise of Skywalker. I want to push Star Wars to its limits, because why not go out with the big bang and make it the best possible thing it can possibly be.
It's definitely Rey. Like, I don't want some sort of change to her character. I've said it in previous videos, that particular version of a hero speaks to me more than the farm boy. I'm not the farm boy. That's not me. But the kid growing up, you know, kind of by themselves a little bit, playing with their toys by themselves, that is me. I'm an only child. So, and very protective, overprotective parents. So I spent a lot of time just figuring things out for myself before I was sort of like thrown into socialization after like a period of not. So that is maybe a lame reason for it. I don't care. I connect to Rey on that level. So like for her to go through all of the things that she's gone through and then have to all of a sudden just find out, oh, it's because of your bloodline. Oh, you're related to so-and-so. You're actually a Palpatine. You're a Kenobi. Obi-Wan banged. Like, oh, fuck off. Just straight up fuck off. If that happens, I will be disappointed. But also, I'll be open to whatever happens. You know, like, I trust that people write films better than I do. Otherwise, I'd write films, right? So that's one thing. And I guess the other thing is I am really wanting to see... I'm wanting to see something that Rian Johnson set up in The Last Jedi. And that was kind of like the close-up visual storytelling. There's something that you really get out of those tight shots on faces that you don't really see in a lot of the other films, but he really just like hammered home on them, and I loved it. Like, I loved seeing the focus and the determination on Poe's eyes, like in that opening scene, just for it to all turn to shit. And there's other moments of that throughout the film that they're subtle, but I think they make a real big difference. Like, you know, Kylo Ren having his anger fit in the elevator and smashing his helmet, and how it just takes that moment to breathe and look in at his eyes and really capture how he's feeling. I think that was something that was kind of special in The Last Jedi compared to the other films, which can sometimes be a bit static when it comes to emotion. But The Last Jedi kind of lived in it. So I hope that JJ takes that and brings that into The Rise of Skywalker.
Wow, the final step on the road to 9.
And I think I can speak for both of us when I say, thank fuck.
But it's been a lot of fun. I mean, look at all these guests we've had.
Yeah, like Star Wars Spelt Out,
Girls with Sabers,
Bad Motivators,
Star Wars Explained,
Major Lee,
Adam Garcia,
Force Toast,
the Imperial Senate Podcast,
Dominic Pace,
That Geek Pod,
AT-AT Chat,
Rogue Squad Pod,
Chatter Squadron,
the Star Wars Refuge,
Make Stuff.
And me?
But how could we forget Zuul, who lives in the attic above the workspace?
Why do you live in the attic above the workspace, Zuul?
It's Marie Claire from With the Force.
Thanks for joining us, Marie Claire.
Gozer the Gozerian.
How can people find you on the internet?
You can find With the Force on any pod apps and on YouTube, or you can reach out to us and start a conversation on Twitter at WT Force Show.
Yeah, likely story, Zuul.
Are you a god?
No?
Sean, when someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
Thanks for watching, and make sure you subscribe for more on the road to 9. Hit the bell icon so you're notified about future installments, and if you like what we do, you can support us by heading over to our Patreon and contributing. Even a small amount helps keep us producing content now and into the future.